think the first one I did was a light. The second one was fire. It was a candle.
To live in hearts we leave behind is not to die.
Of course, living abroad poses challenges. Grieving makes it a little more difficult. So today I just want to share a little bit of my own experience with that. So from California to Japan, about 5,500 miles away, or 8,800 kilometers. So the physical distance, you can't be around friends, family when things happen. My dad passed away less than 2 years ago, but I had not talked to him in a long time. Some of the challenges that the distance creates for you, like attending a funeral. My dad was cremated, and because I'm his son, I had to sign documents remotely for the crematorium. It's a strange feeling, you know. I knew very well what that document represented. I still have that signed paper that I faxed back, and I even have the pen that I used to sign it. Being far away made it simultaneously a surreal experience and one that I think carried even greater sorrow. I mean, yes, you could hop on a plane and transverse the distance, but a lot of times that's not even practical for everyone who's living abroad. Grieving in another country, there are a lot of things to consider, such as expat guilt. You made the conscious decision to live in another country. You didn't have to. Everyone has their reasons, you know, when things happen, because things are still going to happen. You're just going to experience them. I wouldn't say it's not a detached way. You're far away, but you still feel everything, of course. Also recently lost my dog that I had she was 12 years old. It's not just if your loved ones are far away. Sometimes they're close. My dog was here with me in Japan. I still had to navigate the cultural differences. So grieving in another country is different even if your loved one is with you. It's almost universal that everybody cremates. I never thought that she would have a Japanese style funeral. So she was cremated. They cremate pets here. And I'm sure like even in the US, that's the common practice. Like, you know, it's just that there's this barrier, right? Like, so in my experience, when you take your pet to the vet and after they've passed, the vet more or less handles what goes on. Maybe some other people have different experiences where they've been more a part of, you know, that end of life event with their pet. But in my experience with all the dogs I had growing up, they got sick, they went to the vet, and if they died, then the vet kept them and they would be probably cremated, I imagine. But you weren't really a part of it. There was no ceremony. The pet funeral in Japan isn't exactly that different from the ones they hold for people. So that was surprising to me. And it's sort of like, I guess, rooted in Buddhism. I went to a crematorium. You arrange flowers around your dog, and you're very much a part of this. It's not like they just do everything. Like in the US, I feel like when you go to a funeral, the funeral home or, you know, whoever's handling that just does everything. But you're very much a part of this ceremony. For me, it was a bit heavy. You do some things to say goodbye, and then after, you know, they're gonna do the thing. They're gonna cremate the body, and after that, you come back, and you don't just receive the ashes in an urn. That's not how it works. You're basically still in the middle of the ceremony at this point. They kind of set it up for you, but you take part in the placement of so first of all, it's not like a fine ash the way that you probably expect it if you're from the US and maybe many other countries. There was no ash that I could see. It was bones. So they deal with the bones and you basically collect them with chopsticks, and somewhat of a surreal feeling to be there, you know, because she just passed. I mean, and this is how it would go because you don't keep the body for very long. And you're moving the bones from the tray that they're on into what's going to be the urn. It's like a jar. And they have to go in a certain order. So you start, I think it was from the feet up to, and then the skull, the head is the last part that would go into the jar. And there's little things that you do in between and whatnot. So anyway, that whole part of it for me was very different. That's a cultural practice that I wasn't used to. Now, I think luckily for me, I studied anthropology in college, so I took some osteology courses where I deal directly with like remains, like bones. So that part of it, just the fact that they were bones like that, it wasn't that, because I've done that before. Not exactly that, but I've dealt with bones, right? So, but it was the fact that it was my dog, right? I never handled remains of someone like that. I've never handled remains like that of someone that I loved, someone that I knew, right? So that part of it was a little challenging, kind of hard for me, actually. Another thing, too, is before that part of the ceremony and all of that, to rewind a little bit, when someone dies, whether a pet or a person, they, I will say, usually have the body with them. It's like either wrapped up. In my case, my dog was placed in a box, and she was in my apartment for a night until the next day, where I could take her to the crematorium. And it's the same thing for people, right? So they'll have the body, and I think it might be something like up to 3 days. I don't remember exactly, but that's something very different, right? Because in the U.S. and in the way that I think most people do it there, that you don't have the body with you like that. They go to like the funeral home, and that's where they stay until the ceremony. So then the next thing I want to talk about is just, grieving in another country. You might find yourself adopting some of the cultural practices like what I just described, but when my dad passed, I couldn't be there for the funeral, right? So the next best thing for me was I needed to do something, memorialize him, and for my own like mind to move on and kind of process things, I needed to do something. It had happened in October, but I hadn't really had a chance to do much. So when a bone came around, I went to at least 2 events, and this is where I had a lantern. I wrote on the lantern, and there's a candle inside. Sometimes it's a light, sometimes it's an actual candle. I think the first one I did was a light. The second one was fire. It was a candle. And you see some of the lanterns, like, because I put this into the Sumida River, and some of them catch fire, they ignite. It's made out of paper. But that is something that I never would have done if I were in the US. Because I lived in another country, and because I was grieving and feeling all of this emotion and need to express and just to mourn, right? I needed something, and I felt that was a great way for me to process things. I plan on taking part in another ritual like that for my dog. Now, the one that I went to in Sumida, the Sumidagawa, the Sumida River there, that one was, it's kind of touristy. So a lot of people were there just having fun, writing fun things on the side of their lanterns and whatnot. So that part was a little weird for me. Just, I don't know, weird, but just like it wasn't the headspace that I was in. So I wasn't crazy about that, but that's just, I wanted to do it, and it was a pretty big one, and it was what I needed, and I'm glad I did it. The next one that I do will probably be a much smaller one, and it's probably going to be in a more rural area where the people there are actually taking part in it because they're also grieving, right? So it's going to be a little bit more fitting, I guess. So another thing I want to talk about is, when you go through these kinds of events, losing a loved one in another country, another thing is the language barrier. And I think that even goes without saying. But when I lost my dog, it was a sudden medical emergency, and she needed to be taken to an overnight, like veterinary hospital. So of course, you have translators and whatnot, but if your level of Japanese or whatever language is spoken in whatever country you're in, if you're not fluent in that or have a high proficiency, there can be these situations where it's tough, especially if you have to make important decisions. So you want to confirm as much as possible that you understand what the situation is. This all can get very gloomy, but I also want to talk about how to cope with it, and I'm still doing that. When you grieve, it never fully goes away 100%, and I don't expect it to, but things do get a little better. And this just happened actually. I lost my dog the beginning of this month, May, very beginning of the month. She got sick tail end of April. I think, as I kind of talked about, where I sort of adopted some of the rituals here, but you can create your own rituals even if there's not an event to go to, but something that allows you to express your grief. It's healthy to get it out. I mean, and if we think about all the cultures around the world and all throughout human history, this is what we do, right? This is how we deal with it. I think it's worthwhile to share what you're feeling and experiencing with the people that you know in the country, friends that you've made, whether they're foreign or natives of the country. And just other things, reading, exercising. And another thing is negative thoughts, right? Just challenging the excessive negative thoughts, right? Because it's probably not quite accurate. And so you're putting yourself through all this extra pain that's not really warranted. Everything is not your fault. It's life, and we're going to have challenges that we face. No matter what bad thing happens, I would say that most of the time we're actually trying our best. But anyway, if you got anything out of it, if you're going through something similar, stick around, come back around sometimes, because I hope that we can connect over a lot of different things. Thank you.